We are live today across LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And thank you for being with us. I'm Steny Sebastian, your host. I'm the principal for data, AI, and automation at Octane Solutions. Today, it's not about AI hype. It's about why some organizations are already getting real measurable outcomes from AI, while most are still stuck in experimenting. In the next few minutes, we will discuss how we regularly observe across the enterprises, explain how agentic AI is transforming work, and highlight what leaders like yourselves should do differently to prepare yourself for the upcoming year, 2026. To share our joint success, our recipe rather, I'm joined by two distinguished IBM leaders, Rajiv Arora and Jairam Subramaniam, who will shortly delve into the platform, the details, and the execution strategies. Gentlemen, welcome to the webinar. It's so wonderful to have you here, especially during this busy time of the year where everyone is often occupied. However, as you know, this is very close to our hearts. Again, welcome to the webinar. Let's get started, right? So, in our last session for this year, I wanted to just reflect on the recognitions that are displayed here. This highlights the results that we have achieved for our customers in 2021 alone. These are not just awards for experimentation. What matters is execution, and today is all about that. I remember having this conversation back in 2021 when I was with IBM and IBM acquired Invenio. The conversations with our C-suite was mostly around hyper-automation. And now when we look at the outcomes, the objectives have always remained the same. Time saving, cost reduction, higher productivity, fewer errors, and stronger performance. So one idea, and that's shaping every CFO, CIO, CTO, and CPOs, is the agenda for 2026. For the organization to be to the agentic enterprise. Not about copilots or not about prompts, but AI that owns outcomes across real workflows. Let's look why most organizations are not there. The data is very clear. As you can see in the funnel, the top end is 84% of organizations that are experimenting with generative AI. As you come further down, 26% have pilots, and let alone only 10% have really operated AI at scale. Now, this gap has nothing to do with ambitions, talent, or access to models. The gap is architecture. Most generative AI initiatives fail because they are disconnected from how work actually happens. There's a lot of static data, there's isolated tool, fragile integrations. Now, the real value lives inside your operational systems, your finance systems, your procurement systems, your IT systems, your approval workflows, your decision logic. Now, without that context, AI stays helpful but shallow. And that's why experimentation, feels busy, but impact stays flat. Now, I just wanted to pause for a minute here in this slide. I just wanted you to reflect where you are in the AI journey. Are you experimenting? Are you moved up the stage of incorporation, proliferation, or optimization? Even better when it is transforming. So this curve reflects what we see across the enterprises, right? Most organizations believe they are further along than they actually are. So exploration and incorporations feel productive because activity is high. Yeah, you've deployed tools and pilots are launched, but value only compounds when AI moves into optimization and transformation, right? That's when AI stops assisting tasks and start owning outcomes, right? So when we start our engagements with prospects, what we realize is yes, they have started off at and it's still stuck in exploration. But as we walk them towards the value chain, we get them towards proliferation and then to optimization. And in optimization, AI becomes embedded in real workflows. Now, Rajiv is going to touch much upon that when IBM started its journey 7 years ago. IBM acting as their own client zero. It improved speed for them, it improved accuracy and consistency. Now, in this transformation phase, AI is actually planning, AI is executing, and it's adapting to the systems and also capturing the human oversight. Now, that's where the cost structures change. Decision cycle compresses and control improves instead of erodes. If your initiatives are still cluttered at the bottom of this curve, you are really learning and not transforming at all. Here, this is a research done by BCG, and I would believe that this is the most important slide where I spent most of my time having a conversation with the C-suite to give them a view of how they can compare themselves. So stage 1 to 3, improve the knowledge workers, the individuals in the organization. Stage 4 and 5 are really transforming the organizations. You would hear that from Rajiv when he comes up with the client zero. You would see the artifacts and how the platform is helping when Subbu goes into a deep dive. But let me explain stage 1 and 2 to give you a better view. Now, stage 1 and 2 gives you better answers and, let's say, explanations. Helpful, but nothing changes structurally, right? It's stage 3, that's where the automation of tasks comes in, but it's very rigid and brittle. Now, the inflection point where the transformation really happens is when AI collaborates. It plans work, it adapts. So, to give you an example, let's say a reporting agent is pulling data, it reconciles the numbers, it applies rules, it drafts summaries, and flag issues. Now, if you're looking at similar examples in stage 5, there are now multiple agents within the enterprise that coordinate end-to-end across your SAP systems, which is your line of business, your Workdays, your Oracle systems, your Microsoft, your planning systems like, Planning Analytics or TM1, your ServiceNow, you name it. And this is where the organization stop using just AI and start operating with AI. Now, most enterprises are yet to achieve, to reach this line. While working with IBM together with Rajiv and Subbu over the last year and being in IBM before that and experiencing myself, there's a lot of lessons that we have learned. So organizations don't fail because they lack ambition, as I said before. They fail because pilots don't survive the enterprise reality, right? The use cases are, it's unclear. There's a lot of fragmented data and the integration, my God. Most organizations look governance as an afterthought. Now, this is where IBM approaches it very differently. And as Rajiv and Subbu often says, and today you're going to hear it soon, IBM is its own client zero. These problems were solved internally first, under real regulatory and scale constraints. And that's why orchestration really matters more than just tools. So when AI can plan and act and learn across the systems, these challenges stop compounding. Rajiv and Subbu, if you could share your perspectives on the lessons learned, that would be great. Can you come off mute and share your perspectives, gentlemen?
Hi, Stanley. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I unmuted myself, but somehow my screen was grayed out. Yeah, so I think a common challenge that we see, you know, what we I'm going to talk about Plan Zero in a very structured way. I want to talk about the approach, but I also want to share what do we see in the market today, how these discussions are evolving, and how we are helping our clients, right? So few things that we have seen is there is a C-level mandate, there is a board mandate on driving extreme transformation productivity with agentic AI or AI in general. uh, and there have been budgets allocated for such kind of projects. There are roles that are being transformed, but I think the approach has been, how do I put AI to work, instead of really looking at how do I reimagine my process, where do I hit my KPIs, and what are the process handoffs, what are the delays that we face in our processes, where are we missing our KPIs. So instead of looking at really those business outcomes, the problem that we are seeing in some of the clients leading with a mindset of putting AI first, and then thinking of the KPIs. So I think that's one gap. And as we kind of come closer to our clients and see how do we solve that problem of two things. One is picking the right use case, and having the right approach, by driving this grounds up. And when I say grounds up means, while there is a buy-in from the senior management, the grunt work, which is actually faced by the people on the ground, who usually work day in day out into those processes, are exactly aware of where they face those challenges. We do those discovery workshops deeply with them. We kind of understand the processes using a design thinking workshop, and then we map into a very structured approach of how do we transform a process which basically can be transformed using AI, and where a human being come into the picture, where there's where can we avoid a human oversight, and where can we have a task assignment through a human being to make the a human judgment. So we kind of balance out this in a very structured way for our customers, so that they pick the right use cases, and then they apply this to the right processes, because applying AI to a wrong process also is a challenge, right? So that's my 2 cents on the adoption. Subbu, maybe if you have any perspective you can share.
No, you added it pretty well, Rajiv, and I completely agree with both of your perspectives. Starting with Steny stating that governance is not an afterthought. Absolutely. So my whole point of how we would want to see agentic AI implemented is one way where you have been alluding about the aspects of how we can drive it top down. Secondly, to speak about governance itself, it is more about understanding how we drive the value as well. So it's not just about governance, it's about observability as well. So how the agents are performing, how the ROI is getting benefited, how each of my points in the ecosystem, the agentic ecosystem, is performing up to its benchmark, etc. These are key indicators, or what we call as evaluation metrics, of how the agent is performing, and giving value is also an important aspect that we have to look for. And to add to that, when we bring in those agents, just like how you pointed out, Rajiv, if it is it's not about implementing AI, it's about implementing AI in the right way. These observability and agentic metrics are the key differentiators that you're going to see in the platform architecture, which is keeping orchestrate apart. And more importantly, how we talk about these with respect to the use cases, these respect to the value that it is bringing in, is also important to be read hand in hand.
Thank you, Subbu. Really appreciate that. Thanks for the view. So, what I wanted to, again walk through is from this, where we have had these conversations with customers and we have taken our lessons, and when we see that they are starting from there, we make sure with all these learnings, so 7 years of IBM's learning that's come in, and the 18 months that we have been on this agentic AI journey, it has basically helped us to build a very agile form of transformation, which basically, in 10 weeks, you've got from your exploration to incorporation. And then because and thanks to the platform, right, it works very well with no code, low code kind of a scenario. And also for those, architects, AI engineers that you may have, it also, gives you that capability to go pro code as well. Now, Subbu later on is going to also talk about Bob, how it's going to help and contribute to your developer productivity. So in a nutshell, what you can see is in 10 weeks, you've got an MVP that can be productionized, and you are, quickly starting with incorporating into other departments, and you are scaling up the value chain. And that's where, we see that, clients move very fast, and especially 2.5 times faster time to value, because we have designed the stages for 4 and 5. Now, I had the opportunity to be with Gartner a month ago and understand what their advices for 2026, especially to the thought leaders of the organization. And here you can see left and right, Gartner and McKinsey are aligned in one thing. So 2026 is about cost discipline, control, and speed. So those CFOs that I've been working with and understand, and Gardner shares this as well, which is they wanted a faster close. The procurement officers wanted visibility and compliance. CIOs wanted connected workflows and scaling. CTOs wanted stability in the environment. Now, traditional tools cannot close this gap, but agentic AI can. And the question is no longer whether AI can work, it's whether your operating model is ready for it. Customers that we have worked with, we have definitely shown that. I'm going to quickly walk you through 3 use cases, and then we'll go into what Raji was talking about, Client Zero. So here, for this airlines, we were able to give them one of the key advantages of the platform, which was reduce the reliance on the key personal bottleneck. They were able to reconcile the data in a minute, and for an activity that took them 2 weeks, we were able to bring it down to 10 minutes. So we started thinking value that the customer is looking for and not agents, and we were able to increase revenue for them. Here is another example of a media company. By working with them, we were able to reduce their reporting times, and which came down from hours to 30 seconds. Now you can see the efficiency gains, right? And it's all because we came together, we understood, we used the platform, we were able to reimagine the workflows and not tasks. We were able to redesign, and that enabled the human agent collaboration to be more adaptive. And this final success story, and there is a QR code where you can scan and listen to the recording, and I would encourage you to do that. And this is where agents executes, and you can listen to Dylan and Amendra in conversations with Darshika and James, where they're talking about the agentic organization, right? The agents execute, human strategizes and oversee. I'll leave it for a few seconds for you to scan and listen to the webinar recording. Now, often we get asked, why only IBM? Why Octane have selected IBM as our strategic vendor and the strategic platform, which is Watson X Orchestrate for agentic AI transformation? Beyond what you're seeing here for, bring your own agents and knowledge to guide and continuous learning, I'm certain you know that IBM has been named a leader across the Magic Quadrant. That matters, for the enterprise AI application development platform, custom software development services, finance transformation, strategy consulting, and data science, machine learning, and platform. So, to be a leader in these quadrant means IBM is able to execute today and position to lead tomorrow as well. The Watson X platform brings governance, interoperability, trust AI, enterprise grade control for every deployment. Now, these foundations, which is connect, control, and optimize, provide you the basis of organizations to scale AI safely. Now, I'm going to hand it off to Rajiv for us to listen about the IBM Client Zero story, how the transformation happened, how the palm off of workflows happen. So, Rajiv, over to you.
Thanks, Tenny. Let me quickly bring up my charts. Tenny, if you can give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you all for being on. I think Steny covered quite a bit on what are the observations, and this was more of a reflection as well of how did we see 2025 go. But at the same time, we thought it will be good to get together and see how do we have a fresh start into 2026 with our approach. One of the approaches which I would like to share is something which is tried and tested, and that is something IBM adopted. And this is not a technology discussion. It's more of an approach that I would be sharing on how did IBM adopt AI as client zero, and how are we helping our customers, and what are the sharings, from all the learnings that we went through over the last 3 year or 7 year journey, as Tenny called out. But essentially, 7 year was more on hybrid cloud and automation transformation. Last 3 years has been very aggressive on infusing AI into our business processes. So today, if we see every company and every industry wants to drive extreme productivity with be it automation or be it with AI. The question is, how do you do it and where do you get started? Uh, for IBM, that question was even bigger because we had already started this journey 7 years ago. We had kind of started applying automation to most of our processes. And what we had to do was rethink and reimagine every aspect of how we operate as a company. And we call that approach Client Zero. So we knew we could use our own strategy of this hybrid cloud and AI transformation and leverage our own technologies, our strategic partnerships that we have with various vendors, and reimagine how we run the company and how do we do the same for you, right? So it's been a 3 year transformation journey for us, driving productivity and cost savings, and I will be sharing some of that approach as we move forward. I think to start with, we treated ourselves as client zero because we wanted to use our own technology. We wanted to drink our own champagne before we go and share it with our clients. So, to drive this productivity at scale, we had to put a very simple execution model in place that works top down and bottoms up both. So, we started with our CEO giving us a vision, CEO and all the leaders setting the direction and giving us a vision and removing the barriers. The vision was, how do you drive productivity? How do you drive cost savings? Right? Cutting cost was the major factor, which every company is aspiring towards. So our Arvind Krishna set a vision of saving $2 billion in the next 2 years. This was, of course, 3 years ago, and it started from there. We formed a committee by saying that in the middle we'll have a transformation office that will turn ideas into measurable outcomes, and that was a very important layer, which was the transformation project office, which could work with different business units, consult them, and then give them basically guidance on how do you transform and reimagine those processes. And at the grassroots level, we had employees who were the productivity catalysts. Now these were the people who were really identifying the process, the daily work that they would do. They would eliminate, simplify, and automate each of the work in their daily process. And everything is basically that we did was done through an external benchmarking, so that we are not guessing, we are learning from the best of the technologies, right? Most importantly, we shifted to an AI first mindset, where we kind of initially looked at what are the top existing processes, and with generative AI we flipped that approach. We started thinking of how do I use AI to redesign the experience end to end for each of my workflow, right? So the intent was not AI replacing people, but the intent was how do I augment AI with our how do we augment AI with our teams, freeing them from the manual work so that they can focus on more higher value outcomes. And because with AI we touch every role, skill development was a core part of our journey. So our formula for productivity at IBM deliberately was very simple. We started by challenging the status quo and applying a growth mindset in how work actually gets done. So, firstly, what we did was we ask what complexities can we eliminate from our processes, right? We looked at our processes, we started eliminating all those complexities. Next, we looked at how do we simplify our end to end workflows. Only once you identify what are the workflows that can be simplified, then we could automate some of those tasks which were done manually. And finally, we would embed AI across our operations. Now, because automating a broken process just scales the problem, this approach of eliminating, simplifying a workflow, and then automating and then infusing AI really helped us look at technology and solving a problem in a very different way. And our so this was basically a very critical step in enabling enterprise wide data integration, where we kind of put a proper data governance strategy, we put certain standards in place, we put a proper structured approach into driving this transformation. Now, what was the learning and what were the opportunities that we saw when we started doing this? We kind of applied this approach to more than almost 100 use cases across IBM, and these are kind of sorted in four very broad categories. If you look at from left to right, you would see that we started with enterprise insights. How did we improve our data integration? How do we give real time insights to our management, right? How you as a board member who's sitting in a board meeting, want to ask a simple question about your sales performance, about your financial performance, can get real time insights across the enterprise data. Those are some of the things that we solved and we saw an opportunity with. We also wanted to give our customers a good experience. So, of course, customer service was another area. How do we streamline our processes? How do we eliminate repetitive tasks? How do we give a better 24/7 self service capability to our customers to reimagine that experience for our clients, right? That is the second area that we looked at. The third opportunity that we saw was in IT modernization. So, how do you optimize IT infrastructure and systems to improve performance? How do you build resilience? How do you ensure scalability? So, these were some of the areas around IT that we looked at. And then, lastly, it was all around digital labor. How do we automate HR, sales, marketing, IT, all our support functions, all our business operations, and eliminate our repetitive tasks, streamline some of these processes, and how do we work more effectively? So these were some of the areas where IBM saw major opportunities in, and where we also kind of lead with our client zero story. I would like to share how did we do that. I think I spoke about how did we infuse that into hundreds of applications, but I want to give you real examples on and all the outcomes that we kind of saw when we started transforming each of these functions. So we started our journey with HR. Today we have almost So IBM, being almost a 280,000 employee organization spread across 178 countries, our challenges of managing employee employee retention, employee experience was extremely difficult, and that's the reason we started with HR. So today we see 11 million HR interactions are fully resolved using AI and agentic AI, with almost 96% of automation that has been achieved for all our employee self-service use cases. And today, anything that we need, right from a visa application letter to a loan application letter to leave application to anything that has to do with an employee going and seeking any information, we solve that real time without a delay. And that basically led to a jump in almost 55 points improvement in our NPS score as well. And last but not the least, it helped us reduce our operating budget on the HR side. So that is one example. Similarly, we saw that in IT, we kind of built uh, an Ask IT assistant for our employees to go and self-serve for all of our IT-related issues to get a quicker resolution into our IT support. Right? This entire deployment was done within 100 days from scratch, and today almost 80% of those uh, IT issues are resolved, including uh, issuing of software, issuing of hardware, solving all the IT related queries. Everything is contained within the environment, and 80% of it is solved within the platform itself. This led to 50% reduction in support ticket just within a 12-month period, and we are seeing a massive productivity gain in the IT organization space as well. Similarly, we adopted in sales, we have access to better content, we generate higher quality outreach for our customers, we engage with our clients more frequently now, we help accelerate some of our sales processes. So these are some of the outcomes that we saw in sales. Similarly, in procurement, in supply chain, everything that we do. So the reason I'm sharing you this is, it's extremely important to look at uh, and understand that IBM has done this already, and we are kind of helping our customers with some of these pre-built accelerators that we built in our product, which is Watson X Orchestrate, which Subbu will probably talk about later in the session. And these pre-built accelerators will help you get started today quickly for all of your business operations. And I think that's something we can probably you can leave your some of your intent with Steny, and then we can always get back to you and how do we consult you in those areas. So that's what Client Zero meant for us. How do we achieve everything that we do with our own technology, and how do we take that story to our customers and help them build from there? Right? That's what Client Zero is. So we deliberately applied AI where it would have the biggest impact on our people, on our business. And what we saw was we unlocked almost 4.5 billion in productivity savings in 3 years. And we are continuing to see that gain in a compounded way. And this 4.5 billion is actually an SEC audited number. This is not something which is coming out of a storybook. It's an actual SEC audited numbers through an auditor who has said that by IBM being a Client Zero and adoption of these multiple technologies, IBM has really shown that kind of productivity savings, right? So this Client Zero is all about a real transformation. How did we really look at every workflow automation intelligently and then embedded AI? And I think I've spoken about it enough times. How did we deploy it in almost 100 plus solutions? Now, this whole Client Zero approach was not just a technology story, it was also a cultural change that we adopted within our enterprise. And this was a top down driven cultural change that we saw. So, to scale AI adoption at IBM, we intentionally reshaped how we work. We have built a culture that anchored based on three very simple mantras: speed, risk tolerance, and talent. We empowered our teams to move fast. We kind of cut friction through, anytime they had an idea, we helped them bring that idea into a real outcome through certain ways, which I'll share on the next slide. We encouraged shared calculated risks, and we partnered closely with our customers. We learned quickly. When I say our customers, means our business operations kind of partnered with us. We are their customers, and we kind of shared this learning quickly, and we held ourselves accountable and responsible for how do we deliver results, right? We invested deeply in our talent by building the right skills, aligning the right incentives, and retaining people. Because whenever you talk about AI, you will always get a pushback from some of the people at the grassroots level, because there is always a fear in mind, right? What happens to me? What happens if I help in this cultural change? But for us, it was a very different approach in the way we looked at this whole transformation. That's why that cultural change before this AI adoption is extremely, extremely important. And how did we achieve that? So what we did was we launched something called as an IBM or Watson X challenge. This is our internal way of proving ground for generative AI. So employees across IBM, what we do is we come together every year and we compete to build real solutions using Watson X. We use this to automate tasks. We use this to boost productivity. We come up with our real business problems at a grassroots level. We form teams, and then we kind of come together and innovate. This is more of a com- competition that we do internally, uh, to see how innovative we can get to solve a business problem, and then these business problems are actually brought to life by some of our engineers who put these problems into real solutions, and then these are kind of brought forward, and then we do an MVP, and then these are brought into production. And that's how we have evolved with almost 100 over use cases which we have seen transformed in the last few years, right? So what's the next challenge is how IBM moved from AI experimentation to execution. You can call it a hackathon, we call it a what's the next challenge, right? So what started as a basic AI education within IBM for that cultural change actually evolved into a hands-on creation of these workflows, of how we look at agentic AI and how we look at this whole transformation. Today, if you look at the number of IBMers who participate, two-thirds of IBMers, 120,000 people actually participate in these challenges. And we have close to 15,000 submissions of ideas. You can only imagine how creative people can get when you give them such an opportunity to work on such a platform, right? 15,000 submissions, which is what we saw in 2025. And we had 23,000 teams who came together. We designed 15,000 agents over the last in our last what's the next challenge. And IBMers who took part in the actual submission was also almost over 100,000 people. So that's the scale we are looking at, and that's the kind of participation and cultural change we drove using this client zero approach. So I think last thing I want to leave you with is what this data makes very clear is that there is an opportunity for transformation, which is extremely, extremely immense. And we are not looking at isolated inefficiencies. We are coming together as a culture, as an organization, and we are seeing how do we bring people together, and how do we then look at technology to fix those problems. Now, to truly transform, you need a platform approach, one that can orchestrate intelligence across systems, one that will help you govern these systems, one that will help you scale AI agents responsibly across these enterprise systems, right? And that's exactly where I would like to hand over to Subbu, who will walk you through how watsonx platform enables this transformation at scale. Maybe I'll take a pause. Subbu, before you jump in, Steny, do we have any questions? Are we seeing anything, or are we good to proceed?
Rajiv, there is something that came across to Sheila, who's managing all the platforms.
Mhm.
So the first one was about, so what HR KPI moved the needle first? So you spoke about identifying, use cases and all of it, but I believe the user wants to identify, how do you measure that first needle? How do you pick the right use case? Any thoughts on that you can share?
Right. So, Steny, see, for us, for HR, we have applied this across our hire to retire cycle for our employees. And there are so many use cases I can talk about. It's a never ending story, but we looked at the average handling time of addressing an employee. Like once an employee would go to a manager, waste so much time, his productive time of looking at any approval, how that employee could resolve it instantly, right? Instead of waiting for 2 days, being frustrated, following up with manager, following up with HR, so many people being involved. I would say that itself was a big accelerator for us to, really look at. So the measurable outcome here was time saving. The measurable outcome here was how would agents respond to that person immediately without that person. So time, of course, was of essence in this case. Time was a good criteria of measurement. And of course, we can talk about many use cases where we'll have multiple examples of how do we hire, how have we cut our hiring cycle from weeks to a few days. How do we retain our talent through different aspects. So the whole journey touched upon various aspects of it, which were extremely hard elements, which were measurable, but even soft elements where we could have a better experience in terms of both the HR professional and the employee.
Perfect. So there are a few well wishes that is coming through. One of the other questions that really stood out, Rajiv, was more about explainability and auditability. Now, if I mean, I'm assuming in this scenario that your CHRO isn't technical at all. How, for such personas, the explainability and auditability comes into practice? Because I understand when Subbu talks about it, you can go through the codes, you can look at, but as someone who is at the C-suite, how does this translate to, and how did IBM do it?
Steny, why don't we take this because Subbu is actually going to touch upon this, not from a not from a coding perspective and how do we look at it, but he's actually going to touch upon the platform aspect of it, and then how do you actually build those guardrails, build those uh, you know how do you contain that uh, questioning, the prompts that will come and the answers that would be given by an agentic AI into a very specific outcome based approach. So Subbu, why don't you go next, and then also talk about observability, explainability, responsible AI with governed guardrails, policy based towards the end.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Sure thing, Rajiv. Let me just start sharing my screen. Sorry, my bandwidth is a little poor, so that's why I'm going off camera a little bit. Apologies, everyone. So, what are before going into the observability side of events, right? I just want to give you an overview about what orchestrate or how we are able to bring this level of uh, accuracy and bring this level of use cases, just like how Raji was explaining in about the client zero use case in specific, able to how are we able to bring it. If you see the orchestrate, what's an orchestrate as a platform, we completely go as an open protocol supportive architecture. So what this mean essentially is we are able to bring in multiple agents, just like how you see on the screen here, on which are deployed anywhere. We are able to cater to tools that are running anywhere. We are able to cater to models, which are the baseline of any agent that are getting created from anywhere. Through these secure protocols that are in place, we have been able to bring all the common supportive protocols into Orchestrate, which connects to the nervous system of Orchestrate to bring this value addition, not just through execution, but at the time of creation as well. Inside Orchestrate, we do have pre-built agents or the domain-specific agents or tools that would help you get a faster runway. And most of the tools which are already familiar to you, like the worlds of success factors, workdays, and SAPs, S4 HANAs, and all these, which are spanning across multiple domains like procurement, HR, finance, etc. So these pre-built domain agents are tools, like I said, are the faster runway for you to connect to create any agents that are orchestrated through any use case of your need. To understand the business problem, right, how we started off with, is the first part in doing so. Through orchestrate, with supportive of these open-ended protocols, through supportive of these uh, co-building experience, we are able to bring all the value chain to the goal that you want to do, through connectivity, through integration, and through execution, which is what Steady was talking in connect, control, and execute layer of orchestrate. And it's like we all know, right, building agents, anyone can do it, right? How we integrate it is just another part. So where we see the minimum turnaround time for the end users to learn and execute agents is also a key factor. And for that, we follow an agnostic approach of where this agent can be deployed. It could be deployed in Salesforce as a plugin. It could be deployed in Teams. It could be deployed in Slack. It could be deployed in WhatsApp. Anywhere, the consumption. The source of consumption doesn't really matter. It could be according to your use case. It could be according to your convenience, is what we support. And this is where everyone, the answer to what Rajiv was asking about comes in, and it comes as an integrated governance lifecycle. So what you are seeing on the screen is pretty much an agentic development lifecycle, where you just need to see it in two aspects. One is how to build and test the agents. Second is how you want to deploy and manage those agents. When it comes to any stage of execution, we do have specific KPIs or specific metrics that are defined at each point of references, right? When you're planning, you will have an evaluation framework that will be set up, which would allow you to validate those framework at the time of planning. At the time of building and testing, I'm taking two and three stages together. You will have the option to run the evaluation or the calculation of these governance metrics, which again serves as the input to the key stakeholders on how they want to define the effectiveness of this agent. Please remember, we are still in the build and test phase, so that's why I'm saying the evaluation metrics are going to be defined at this point of time. So at each of these iterative stages of development, the builders as well as the stakeholders who are going to see the effectiveness of these particular agents are able to see in real time of how my agents are performing. We have not deployed it. We will be able to see what is my drift score is. We'll be able to see what my specificity of answers is. Do my LLMs require any specific tuning as such? So that from a technical point of view. From an ROI point of view, you can run a pilot at this stage itself while you have let's say a pre-production environment, or you have something which is not live yet. You can go there and run these metrics against the agents at a testing phase itself, where you will be key pointing out on, because I wish to quote an example of a customer that we just interacted with. That customer has started with around 30 users as a pilot, and from the 30 users, they were able to bring in a significant reduction of time, which is to the scale of 60 to 75 percentage of reduction in their actual time process. And this was not even production, this was just a pilot with 30 users is what I'm talking about. And specifically, once you pass this test and release phase is when the actual monitoring and the actual evaluation of how the agents are performing, and subsequently bringing the value to reality of your investment is what is going to come up as. Then comes with what are the agent ops, what how do I measure this. Getting this KPI is one part, and how do I measure through the dashboard is this. So what you're seeing is how we provide you options with specific agent analytics, how much of the requests were failed, what is the latency here, what are the test cases that I have done, right? You could simply upload a CSV and you could test it out, and before getting this into live version, how you can see the results coming, what is the outcome of it, and how is the quality of the answer, right? How the evaluation comes in, what is my confidence score, etc. Everything can be monitored from like an integrated perspective. And more than that, how you need to have an agent perform through guardrails is also doable. Now, the way that I wish to put is pre-processing, execution, and post-processing. These are three different steps in executing an agentic flow. When it comes to pre-processing, it looks at the behavior of the agent and clarifies how the tool requires to be called, or simply plans how the tool requires to be called and executes it and gives the answer. Remember, this is the behavior. And this, when it comes to execution, it goes to a post-processing step of guidelines where the behavior is clarified according to the guidelines that you have set. An example of a guideline is mask the personal identifiable information, the PII, right? So it runs on top of whatever that has been delivered as an outcome from the behavior section, runs the post processing, and subsequently gives you only the relevant output that you would wish to see. So in this way, both the observability as well as the governance go hand in hand to make sure that you are not showing whatever that should not be shown. You are in line with the compliance related standards, and you are always free of the agent going above its scope. You are always free of the worry from an agent not showing what the outcome that it is expected to show. Remember, this is on top of the connections and the credentials which would enforce all the requisite guidelines of how you want to access these agents and tools from a role-based access control perspective. These are some of the metrics that are there, when it comes to build all the synthetic data generator, evaluation toolkit, etc. And all these are how you are going to look at, drift and anomaly detector, the insights dashboard on how these agents are performing. All these are the metrics that are available to you through orchestrate to ensure that at any point of build and execute cycle, you do have the control over how the agents are performing. You do have the control over any inherent creeps or scope creeps or data creeps or outcome creeps that you have are completely controlled and reassessed how the agent is expected to perform and bring value to how you are expecting this to be shown to the end users. Finally, this, like I said, it comes as an integrated value chain through what's next governance. It's not though what's next governance is a separate product. Through orchestrate, you are getting an integrated view of how you can build, deploy, and use these agents through across multi-agent orchestration. How you would look at hundreds of evaluation metrics that are consumable via API. If you want to have like a Power BI dashboard integrated, or any dashboard of your choice to be integrated, Cognos or anything that you have to integrate it, we provide a very sophisticated level of APIs that would give you that direct accessibility to how you want to consume these. Through the guidelines, through the metrics that are being there, you are getting sure shot of getting actionable recommendation and real-time monitoring. So the highlight or the answer to how Steny was asking about the need for a governance platform and how does the C-level execs ensure that the agent is performing to the code and are bringing the value, is through the governance platform, which is integrated with orchestrate, and through the metrics, the real hundreds of use cases, the real hundreds of metrics that we already have to support you at each and every point of agentic deployment lifecycle, to bring you that value, to showcase that value, and to control whatever that you don't want to show across to the end users. Over to you, Steny, before we start the next side of Bob.
Yeah, so there's one question, and thank you so much for sharing the insight. Just wanted to, so there's a question that has come in, but I wanted to add a bit of context to the question as well, which is, so Rajiv did speak about the HR to the length, and it's also a sensitive area as well. Now you can imagine, from an exec when it's coming, orchestrate is executing task. How does it ensures that the role-based access is handled, because it's a very sensitive system.
Absolutely.
So how
Absolutely.
does, can you add a bit more insight about that,
Sure.
please?
Surely. So there are two places in which the role-based enforcement comes in. One is once you log into Orchestrate, which is where you are defined based on a persona. Are you a builder? Are you an admin? Or are you a user? That is where this whole persona level enforcement comes in. This is into getting into Orchestrate. From that persona level platform enforcement, the next stage comes into tool integration. That tool integration is is tightly controlled through connections and credentials module, which is going to connect to your schema. Say, for example, if you have a success factors that is running as a tool inside Orchestrate, this success factors instance would be connecting to your security schema, like an SSO, like an IDP or Okta or Entra. Anything you are able to define as a builder inside Orchestrate on how you would want to enforce that level of role-based access control, not just by entering into the platform, but to access the tools as well as the agents that are inside as well.
Perfect, Subbu. Thank you. I'm cautious of the time. There's a couple more, but I'll touch on one important aspect as well, which I believe the broad audience, I think we have around 90 plus across all the three platforms. So it's more about, I have a very lean team. There's a lot of identified use cases. How do I scale? There's something that was spoken about developer productivity. Can you show a bit of insight or share a bit of insights around those, please?
Absolutely. I'm just starting to share my screen again to talk about one of the most recent additions to, or one of the most recent changes that we have had with respect to how we approach uh, uh, developer productivity, which is what we call as Project Bob. So my screen is visible, I believe, right? Just confirming.
Not yet, Subbu.
Yet.
Yes, now.
Yes.
Now it's up. Okay, cool. So what there are many ways in which how you can look at your employee productivity, or your very specific to SDLC in this particular case. What I'm going to show you is a code assistant, which is not just a code assistant, but it is capable of understanding you, your intent, how it can analyze the code intelligently, and subsequently support you with versatile development mode of coding, asking, and advanced. You can think about like yourself as an architect, where you can have very comprehensive code reviews being done to maintain the quality standards. There are like a very in-depth sorry there is a very in-depth capability of how you can maintain the security of the code that is being generated through how you want to build in white source or check marks or 45 scans very specifically, which is going to help you not just generate the code, but be sure at each and every single point of a software development lifecycle to make sure that your code quality is consistent, your performance of the code is consistent, and subsequently you can accelerate the development lifecycle that are across it. And it's not just an assistant, it's a completely agentic end-to-end platform, where you do have a very complete control over how you write the code, how you provide the instruction, how the context is managed. Bob has a context window of 200,000 tokens, which is very much complicated enough to get into the much required nuances to get to the level of accuracy that you're looking at, get to the level of depth that you're looking into generating the code. I myself, with through the privileged access of being an IBMer, have been trying out code for the Bob for quite some time, and uh, I cannot. Emphasize enough how satisfied I am with respect to generating the use cases, the codes that I've been using in many of my demonstrations for Watson X Orchestrate. So, speaking about the synergy that it offers, right? It is more about how the builders, the agent builders users would want to have such a tool, right? There is no shortage of code assistants, right? There are many code assistants that are there. In fact, we were running a session with one of large technology organizations in the world yesterday, where we could strongly emphasize how the security aspect is coming through, because that is where the customer was more concerned about. So we could emphasize how the security aspect, we showed them how a white source scan is embedded onto the code, code refactoring is 100% accurate and everything, right? So The major thing that I liked about Bob is, like, let's say you do have a dependency with a database, and pardon me if I'm getting into too technical, because this is me, developer, who is actually coming out of its shell when I speak about developer activities. So when it comes to using Bob, right? Let's say you have a dependency on a database creation. Bob intuitively identifies that there is a database creation requirement, and it creates the user stories in such a way that, or the tasks in such a way that it makes sure that the end-to-end journey is complete, the end-to-end dependencies are complete. It generates the required data, the synthesized data that is required for its testing, and it creates a test plan after that, and then executes it and makes sure that the code coverage is 100%. So this is the level of I want to call it a sophistication, but I am inclined to call it simplicity that it offers to the front users, where you can be confident about by giving a use case to ensure that that end-to-end coverage is always there. These are some of the use cases that we have been hearing, like, Java grades, UI modernization. These are some of the use cases that we have been hearing. Long story short, how we are able to put in any kind of requirement that any developer community has, to specifically cater to that use case and subsequently allow them for an end-to-end deployment, can be handled through Bob.
Right.
Uh,
So I think that's a good answer, and that takes us to one of the questions which Steny had also highlighted. How do I manage this whole, agentic architecture in my organization, especially when I'm so lean? Uh, and I think that gives a very good view, Subbu, that even though you don't have too many developers to build that agent for you, firstly, within the platform, we will do a low code agent builder where you can just go and create an agent even as a business user without having that developer knowledge. Secondly, if you are a developer, a very small developer community, one or two people, you can still use Bob as a tool and create agents within watsonx orchestrate that basically helps you accelerate the whole journey of development and going into production. So I think we have solved those problem end to end, and thanks, Subbu. That was a pretty comprehensive answer based on what Steny asked you, but I think that was pretty helpful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Look, so I think it's the hour, and Rajiv and Subbu, thank you so much for sharing the success story. And I know I'm fast. Some of the questions, there are a few which I believe we can go back as comments. Now, if I can, Rajiv, just come off mute. If I can ask one last question, what would be that one piece of advice that you would like to give to the leaders who are evaluating agentic AI today? What would that be?
Sure. I think, Steny, my 2 cents would be start with a business problem, look at that, uh, consider 2 or 3 use cases to see how the technology can help you relook at your workflows, and then look at a enterprise-wide transformation approach. So once you have done a proof of technology with 1 or 2 use cases, proof of value comes over a period of time. Uh, it takes time. Adoption takes time. To see how uh, you create that KPI impact also takes time. No employee is perfect on day one. Just like that, no AI will be perfect on day one, right? So look at it as a digital human who will be augmenting your knowledge, your capabilities. Don't consider it to be perfect on day one, so that you don't move your pilots into production. That's what stops a lot of people.
Yeah,
So I think that would be my 2 cents. Start with 2 use cases. Once the technology works well, scale. That's the way
perfect.
to go.
Thank you. And Subbu, I could see a few architects on in. So, for that audience, I know you have been trying to step away to keeping it generic, but what would be that one piece of advice from you to who is looking at agentic AI today?
So what we have seen as a problem, I completely agree with, and that's a bold statement that Rajiv made, and that summarizes everything. But what I have seen in the past also is that there are pretty much siloed infrastructure lying everywhere. There could be a small use case that you may be using, Rajiv may be using, I may be using, but that doesn't really correlate to how you bring value to an organization. So scaling up, looking for opportunity to scale to bring the value to back to actually to organization would be one recommendation that I would have. Secondly, how you would want to look at a complete agentic or end-to-end transformation would completely depend upon use cases, right? So having the vision, like I've said in one of my previous webinar, also one of the customers that I've been interacting with are already looking at rethinking about how they want to look at their employees to get better value out of the agentic as well as the specific values that they offer through the employee side as well. So those are my 2 points that I would recommend. One is to scale. Second is how you would bring the value of employees plus agentic together to get to the next level of bringing value completely to the organization.
Perfect. And look, thank you, Subbu, again. So we are top of the hour. So let me leave you with this, right? So for the CFOs in the room, now this is about measurable ROI, faster close, lower operating costs, and fewer manual controls. For the CIOs, and this is about scaling AI safely across the core systems, right? Without the tool sprawl or the technical debt. The procurement officers, this is about compliance and visibility and the execution at speed. So IBM Orchestrate is not another pilot platform. It is how you turn one high value workflow into production impact within weeks. So bring your use case to us and we will help you quantify the value, design the architecture, deploy a production ready agent that delivers real outcomes. AI already works. The advantage now belongs to the leaders, such as yourself, who can monetize this. Scan the QR code and move from experimentation to impact. And before we wrap up, I wanted to say a genuine thank you to everyone. Thank you for who have joined us. I mean, I can see 90 plus across all the platforms, and you've spent this hour with us, and which is always a busy time of the year. We truly appreciate your engagement and your thoughtful questions, and we have seen come through. A special thank you to Rajiv and Subbu for sharing the insights and practical experiences as well. Your perspectives on orchestration and real enterprise scaling AI makes today's discussion far richer and more grounded in reality. So as we close the year, I wanted to wish everyone a safe Merry Christmas. And if we did not get a chance to speak again before the year ends, I wish you and your team a very happy, healthy, and a successful new year. We look forward to continuing these conversations in 2026 and helping more organizations move to stage 3 and stage 4. So thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.
Thank you all.